How's it going, everybody? We're live on Facebook now. We're going to have Isabella Greene up here in just a minute. Going to play a little 4-minute clip from the Soulogy Soul Gathering we had in Sedona a few weeks ago. This was submitted by Christy Grace, our beloved sister. I think you'll like this.
Yea, darkness, oh, ye have taught me sweet and bitter moments, tasting the Christed Master's salty tears. Pain in her belly, swollen of sun, darkness burning. Still, she kept the fire burning. Blue was the color that accompanied black on her body that was pink for her sons rolling back. I wonder she's a quiet girl. Cat got your tongue made saving her spoon. Don't bring her around out when she had food. So she wore her clothes with legs to avoid the men's stares. What an interesting fashion, the girls' age would say. Her style showed such passion that she preferred black. But the secrets went unhidden, her body feeling split under clothes with many layers, and avoiding all the glares. It's amazing all the fear that can come from those who are upset. All the bruises they can cause, we'll just hide them under those. The girl in many layers tried so hard to hide the tears, but the no sun was ignored. All the pain she only stored. No layers ever thin to hold that torment from within. And with fire she kept in, began to melt the stone, revealing her bones, broken and burned. Through her child she learned to reclaim her soul, all lost parts of self she calls to return. Still, she didn't want to be, but to die. She didn't want to be, but to die is to cower before the hour of resurrection and scorn her connection with her connection with the perfection she would sever. So she began speaking to the shadows of the past. Every time the sun went down, you could feel the darkness cast. Go ask Mother, milking the nursing breast. She can tell you everything, all the secrets of the night, the cry of the horny cat, and haunting moans. Midnight hours. There was a mystic in the air, haunting her with howls and silent murmurs, saying nothing, saying everything, hanging in the silence, waiting for the kill. She was an amnesiac when she heard the parasitic maniac. Who am I? What have I become? How can I get out of this unbearable numb? Lost in the past, she knew not it was now. She tried to escape, she thought she had the know-how. Just block it out, make it go black. How did it work? She was an insomniac. Never later had to rest, stay awake, medicate, fight herself possessed. Feelings tainted, her senses painted. Every night, like a nightmare, ticking. When it was done, the hours passed, the fear was gone, she was free at last. At least until the next forecast. Through the ancient hour of despair, not a sleep nor a dream in the waking. Yet we're all dreamers one way or another. Some go on to dream and others follow their brother. The child went on to scream, a scene unseen. No one listened to her cries, they only listened to his lies. In the heated version of truth, at a time she could not remember her youth, it was blood, red blood. On the altar of the dead, green eyes spread, the hunger was never fed. Pain, internalized, sunk into an unremembered relic. Her senses hypnotized, color psychedelic. First she felt him near her breathing, down her neck, she ran. Then she felt him near her sleeping in her.
Let me just turn that off. All right, that was the beautiful Rest in Power Sherlyn, Asturias Miracula, and Jay Lyons, good friends of mine from Sedona. Let's pull up Isabella Greene, speaking of Sedona, and see what she's got going on from the front line of the apocalypse. The great unveiling. Hola. There you go. I should be able to see you in like 3 seconds. Oh, wait a minute. I can't hear you.
Hi.
I can't hear you.
Are
Oh,
you
now I can hear you.
Yeah, did you unmute
No,
me?
you're good.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Todd, how
you're
are
good.
you?
You're good. Very good. What's going on, Isabella Greene? What's going on with you? What's been happening through the month of October, and that last couple of days in October were pretty intense for people.
Yeah, that's for
I don't know if that
sure.
affected your universe or not.
Mm.
Yeah.
W-
You look
Well,
good though. You look good.
thank you. Yeah, my rides are pretty smooth nowadays, but I'm definitely observing the expansion and the new levels of embodiment that we have Sandra Walter talk about that. We have other teachers talk about that. And today I was feeling like sharing what that means and how we ground it into this reality, into the the physical experience all together.
Into the real deal.
Right, because
Yeah.
uh, we often tend to just wander off into the realms, but we're still in the physical, which means we're required to
Yeah.
live the life down here. And I wanted to
Yeah.
share my understanding of what the new level of embodiment really means. And you shared something super awesome about your experiences with losing the uh, need to want. Remember that was
Yeah.
a few days ago, and so I had a few comments about that too. Do you want to
Yeah.
go?
Yeah. Let's do it. Yeah. Let's do it. This is yeah. Let's go. Good conversation topics.
Okay. All
Good
right.
conversation
So you're
topics.
just
Yeah.
gonna let me like rip here or what?
Yeah. Well,
By myself?
I was gonna, I was gonna make one comment, which is kind of a metaphoric comment, but you mentioned
Uh-huh.
Sandra,
Yeah.
and so I saw, I look at some of the posts, I see them as they come up if I'm going through the news feed,
Yeah.
and I saw a couple of hers, but the one I saw was where she was going out into the land,
All right.
and it was like 30 degrees, and she was saying, hey, this is grounding me in her own way.
Right.
And yeah, that energetic representation, and in this case it's her and the land she's on, and where she's going and what intention she has or lack of, right, is like, it exemplifies this new energy. It's like, it is going into a place that you really don't know what's there,
Right.
but we kind of made the conscious choice to go ahead and walk that direction. And people are doing it everywhere. You're doing it. We're doing it. People are doing it everywhere. And it's kind of a little shaky, unless you've been doing it for 15 years, like Sandra. And but at the same time, you can see that it's got some traction and it's taken hold on the earth, and it's a life-changing kind of frequency. So it's incredible to be part of it. Yeah,
And
that's what I was
I'm
just
not the one
lead
to
in with.
right. I'm not the one to speak about her work or her experiences. She does the brilliant job doing that herself. But my
Right.
understanding is that we literally are pulling the energy through ourselves. We're like channels, like acupuncture needles. We're pulling the energy through ourselves and we're anchoring it into the ground. I used to be called literally like wake up and know that I have to go to this specific rock, this specific location, just place my hands on and just open the heart and channel that into earth, because that's the way of healing earth. Earth is a living organism, same as you and I, like the energy healing that works for human beings it works the same way from human beings into the planet too. And she's receiving that energy from the realms or from the celestial, but we can ground that very well into ourselves first and then assist, because we're literally reconnecting the grid around the earth. When I do the work with people and I kind of turn the light back on or help them turn the light back on, I see how that light just shoots out and connects or clicks right back into the grid that we as light workers are holding around this planet to support the whole process and support the the evolution of not only ourselves but the planet itself. And she needs a lot of love, consider, because we're counteracting or counterbalancing whatever else action is being taken place that's out of love towards the land. So yeah.
It's pretty easy to figure out what feels right and what doesn't. I think it's like breaking out of these patterns of what doesn't, and making the choices to move into the ones that feel right, which are the ones that are the kind of unknown ones.
Yeah.
The other thing I find kind of interesting is a lot of people, when they woke up, they were pulling specific channels or specific star family or specific divine essences or angels or whatever, and guides. Let's just put it that way. And over time, a lot of people have talked about embodying that, and how the voice has changed from one particular essence to maybe several different ones, and then eventually one voice for some people. And there's no right or wrong way. But one of the things that I think is happening, or seems to be happening, is that as that becomes more and more of an embodied kind of thing, there seems to be external, and again, I'm sure aspects of ourselves, but new external essences or entities working with us. It's like they go hand in hand. Like the more we let go, the more it comes in. Are you experiencing anything like that?
I see this in sessions. Everything I know is through sessions, pretty much, through my meditations, because I learned something through sessions, and then I sit on that in meditations to get more of the download or more information on the same. But I get that in the channeled messages for people a lot, where what is being said is you don't have to personify the guidance any longer if you don't want to. You can choose to work with a specific race and associate yourself with a specific aspect that your soul is connected to through DNA or through just the soul stream, or both, actually. Or you choose to bypass all of the form, both physical and non-physical, and go directly into the space where it's all present. And once you tapped into that, you just walk in with it all the time. However, if you want to drop and personify again, it's like, what's my Pleiadian aspect doing? What's my Andromedan aspect doing? What's my Draconian aspect doing? All of that, you can be checking that if you wish. But once you tapped into the essence of the formless dimension, or what we call the void, or what the great creator, whatever source you want to call it, just that field that creates and sustains
the entire infinite field. And what was I going to ask you? Oh, so your work, it sounds like for you, with the information you put out, it's similar to, and I don't mean as specific to QHHT, but it's similar to like how Dolores started writing, and a couple other people I can't think of right now that are kind of contemporaries to you. So a lot of your information comes through sessions that you're facilitating,
right? And
then you sit with that information and expand on it. Is that right?
Correct. Yeah. And I was influenced. I loved Dolores Cannon's work, and I read her books, and I was very impressed with that. But when that was happening, I had no idea what she was talking about.
Right. You're like, isn't that crazy? Isn't that crazy? Like in the early days of waking up, you would read stuff. I remember I just came off the streets and this one lady was writing this crazy stuff about crack
Right.
off and her multidimensional aspects, having these meetings and shooting into all these different realities. I'm like, I don't understand a damn thing she's saying, but I printed the whole thing out about 10 pages because I knew it had something for me, and I still
Right.
wouldn't understand.
Or you
So,
didn't know.
yeah, I get what you're saying.
You probably didn't know that till a couple years later. This is why I always tell my clients, record the session and keep listening to it. It's going to make sense to you eventually. It's
Right?
the same
Isn't
thing
that true?
because we upgrade
Isn't
slowly.
that true?
Yeah, but there was
Yeah.
also someone some time ago when I was already actively doing this work, but not in the capacity that I am in right now. But someone recommended also to look into the work of Alba Weinman, who does not only the QHTT, but she expanded that modality from the quantum healing hypnosis that Dolores was doing, but also into interaction with entities and thought forms and clearing and all kinds of stuff. And so I listened to her, a number of her work videos online, and that influenced me a lot too. And so I generated a method of work where people do not have to go under hypnosis, because majority of the people that come to me say, hey, you know, I tried hypnosis and it did nothing to me. I could not go under, or they gave me like 3 incarnations and 1 entity and I'm not satisfied. I cover everything, and people do not have to go under because I work as a surrogate. Basically, it's like a surrogate hypnosis kind of thing. The person is just relaxing, but I'm allowing the whole stream of information to come through me. I experience, I learn everything about them, and also learn about dimensional beings and what they're doing and what their habitat is and what's up. And like recently, I've been having a lot of avian energies coming through, and the Taurians that I've never worked with, like the Taurus beings, and the avians just been present. And I learned so much about like genetic manipulation and their habitat and like all kinds of stuff just through that. And then they recommended in the session, they recommended for the person to learn about the work of Thoth in Egypt. And I said, hey, you know, I'll check it out too. So I started, not only I went through the Emerald Tablets, now I'm going through the Book of the Dead. This is fascinating for me, but I also sit in meditations and go where Thoth was hanging out, kind of, you know, and getting more and more of that, because you really don't need books anymore once you know how to tap into like the infinite source of information. Light is information. Emptiness is information. Everything is information.
Well,
what you focus
and that's
on.
like, yeah, and like as a practitioner, and I love the fact, I love the way these things are birthed, you know, like these different modalities that are unique to the practitioner, because they it's a combination, I think, of downloading and then also looking at others' templates, you know, or maybe you know, being walked through the early days of ascension or whatever, like you with Dolores, and then remixing it, just like the other lady you were talking about, and even your own method where you don't go into hypnosis. But it also brings up to me where you said, like, there, you don't have to read books anymore. And I wonder, as a practitioner, like, what's your perspective on people's abilities, and are they using it, and is it available to actually move into a space of like reprogramming at a conscious moment by moment conscious moment by moment level? You know,
I
you see
love
more
this.
people being able to do that.
Yeah, and I love this question because it ties into like the new level of embodiment, because we are now understanding or becoming more and more aware of our multidimensional function or structure. That doesn't mean that, oh, I'm in 5 different cosmic realms. We are there, but we're also in the physical, we're in emotional, we're in energetic space, we're in higher self space, and we're in all of the in-between spaces too, and the karmic imprints, and the whole thing just ties in together, and one thing influences the other. And I do teach within my sessions how to move, how to recognize what created your physical condition, what created your emotional pattern, and what is influencing you from the ground and up. And then I teach people to move past that. So I have developed very solid, in my opinion, understanding of how the human system works, you know, from the physical to higher self and everything in between, and how to work with it and how to reprogram it so that you could really arrive in the best space available to you. And that's when your abilities become available to you naturally, because you are led into developing the higher state of mind and embodying the higher self, and then things are harmonious in this case. Because when people just force themselves or force their abilities through various techniques, like the military does, for example, right? They have techniques to make a person become able to remote view, but these people become super unstable because the mind or the consciousness in the wrong place, you know. So development of the higher mind first and understanding, but that starts from clearing, scooping out all of the gunk from the bottom of the barrel, and we all have that. That's the human condition, you know. So yeah, it's a fascinating process altogether. And yeah, I walk people through everything from physical to higher self and everything in between.
Yeah, and that's you know, all this stuff is moving so fast. That post you were talking about that you commented on, that was actually a post Morgan had done, which was basically a recap of, I think, two of the last, I think the 29th and 30th of October, where it was really the human part of, like, the really it involves shadow, it involves detaching, it involves all the sensations of, like, what's happening, you know, at all the different levels. I mean, the shadow work, you know, that self-examination, it's never anything else, it's always about me, seems to be taking root now. Has that changed the trajectory or the methodology of your practice as time's gone on, as people are waking up and being more self-sufficient and self-reliant?
Well, first of all, it changed for me because I am my own experiment in my own petri dish. So as I keep,
I'm a lab rat.
Yeah, I am my own lab rat for sure. So as I keep working on myself and digging stuff up and understanding it and processing it, oh my God, it worked, right? So it adds to my method, or it adds to what I share with people. And that definitely did change. But the interesting thing here, as far as like what's going on with the people are coming in, the ones that know nothing about anything, you know, they'll literally come in and like enlighten me or explain this to me. I'm uncomfortable AF, you know, and I want you to like walk me through it. And so that's something that I've been doing, but intuitively they know very well, you know, that, oh, there's this thing that I can't get over and I don't know what it is. Can you show it to me? So this is what I do. But has the clientele changed, or has the type of mentality changed? Yeah, we have also a whole new layer of people who are already aware that they're supposed to be clearing the bottom of the barrel so that they can embody higher frequencies and live in a better reality. It literally does give you a better human experience, because you're in the fullness of the human experience outside of the 4Fs. You know, the 4Fs is what runs the human experience: fighting, fleeing, feeding, and fornication. That's the 4Fs.
Feeding. Did you say feeding? Feeding?
Fighting, fleeing, feeding.
Let me,
yeah.
oh my God, that's funny. That's funny. So, yeah, what was I was going to ask you too. You were
You
talking
said
about
you were talking
people.
about the Morgan the post, and I wanted to comment on that because you
Oh, yeah, yeah. Go ahead.
experienced, you tapped into losing the desire to want or losing the ability to want, and that is a side effect that happens because I've experienced that too, and it moves you from, oh, I don't have this, I don't have that, I need this, I need that, and then that's the human condition. That's like as common as
Yes.
it gets. But
It
then
is. It is. Yes. Yes.
in the
So it's like
plans and
the
wait,
yeah,
wait, wait,
and
wait.
it's like
Can I finish?
the
Can I please
oh,
finish?
go ahead. Go
And
ahead.
and
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah,
the
yeah.
plans and the ideas and the, oh, I gotta do this, oh, all the projects, oh, like I'm gonna be big and famous, all that. But then you shift into the space where you've experienced oneness with everything and nothing is lacking. And then that whole desire of the ego is just gone, and you tapped into this.
Yeah.
And this is when you become that vessel that you're talking about. That vessel that you're
Mhm.
talking about, where you all you have to do is hold your frequency high in good space, and the rest is
Mhm.
just coming through you, and you're sitting back in awe, and you need to take action on that, but you're sitting back in awe as how things are
You
coming
can't take
together,
it.
right? Is that
Yeah.
does
Yeah,
that ring the bell?
well, yeah, it's funny. It's really funny, it really is. It's like, okay, so, and what I see happening on these shows and what people are putting out there,
Right.
it's like death. They're like these
Mm.
deeper deaths
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
deaths of releasing, or I don't know, separating from death, or not even separating. It's actually like an integration. It's like to accept something, you accept that, whatever it is. I don't
Yeah.
know, it's really weird, but you're right, it's changing the way, like, we look at, say, goals or objectives, or even the way we function. Like, as we were going into the month and this energy was hitting, Morgan saw this thing, and it said, it was in the Bible, and you write 300 things that you want, and you
Mm.
read them every morning, right? And so she's like, she didn't say, do you want to do it? But she kind of like gave me that feminine thing where, like, I'm going to do this. And she didn't ask me to do it, but it didn't resonate with me. For some reason, it
Right.
didn't resonate with me. I thought, you know what? I've done a lot of lists and stuff. You know what? It just doesn't resonate. And then the crazy thing was, on Saturday, I woke up and I thought, wow, I think I'd like to read that list. But it just
Mm-hmm.
popped in my head. And I told this story on a couple of shows. But so then she came back, and her higher self told her, that list, it's shit. Get rid of it. Because the things that we wanted were, if we want them from a fear-based or lack-based mentality,
Yeah.
then that's going to keep us from receiving the direction and the guidance to what aligns with us the most, which is maybe something on that list that would be purely from the heart, right? Like something that's not too specific, like I need to live in this country, or I need to do this or do that, or it could be, I want to write every day, I want to speak in front of people, or whatever you really love. So it's interesting how this is all falling away. And I wanted to ask you, because Amanda Lawrence put out a post, and a couple other people did too, and kind of the energy of it is, we're going into this last 2 or 3 months is about this deep clearing you were talking about with what your patients want to achieve, right? My question to you is, because some people have put this out there, that we're actually, there's a group of us, and I don't mean to cause any separation whatsoever, there's a group that is clearing this really, really deep stuff, because as the year rolls around, we're going to be put to work. And this would go back to what you were saying earlier about your clientele and their needs, right? What do you
Mm-hmm.
think about that? I'm not advocating it. I'm just saying, does it resonate? What is that?
Okay. So there are a couple of things there that you mentioned that I wanted to kind of comment upon, because today, by the way, there was a post that I was tagged in that was saying, when you are wishing for something that you don't have, then you feel worse than you and you do. Like, it makes you feel awful because you're in full awareness of how you don't have that. But this is where like the lists on the basic level come in. People write the list, but nothing happens because why? Because they're operating from the perspective of unhealed space, which is the human condition of unworthiness that we're all pretty much 99.9%. A human condition is
100.
Right.
100.
You're right. I don't deserve, I can't get it. And when they're trying to, you can write lists till you're blue in the face, but if that's running the program, your attraction mechanism is going to match what you're feeling on the background. It's going to match what you were conditioned into. So before the lists make any sense whatsoever, that's something to be looked at, and that's something to be balanced and healed and worked out first. And then as you're going through that, you might end up in a space like you experienced, that whatever the lists was based on, I don't know, the mind's idea of what's best, or the ego based, or that childhood trauma, what have you, you know. And so I'm an advocate here of saying, feel inspired. I want to feel inspired every day. That's the number one on every list. Just like the state of being does the attracting. So I just want to feel I'm inspired every day. I'm excited. I'm at peace, and I'm grounded in this work. Let it come through me. Let me see how it goes. And when it starts coming through, that's when we take action. You know, because if you just sit there, meditate all day, nothing's going to happen. So there's a healthy balance between kind of knowing that you want to be bringing that next level, the 2020 next level, into this reality, and anchoring it and sharing it. And it's definitely tangible, powerful shift for everybody, without holding on to specific idea of how it's supposed to happen. Because when we have a very specific idea of how it's supposed to happen, it constitutes a block, because the higher mind has a much clearer view of what's right for you than the human perspective. And so if you're in the right place and it's moving in the right direction, you are inspired. If you're in the right place, it's moving in the right direction, you are feeling amazing and you are contributing. So starts from creating that feeling within yourself, and then continuing, because the outer reality is going to bring you things to feel inspired about, bring you things to feel excited about. So that's the only list, is to have an idea, have a desire, have an intention to be of service, and always find a way to be inspired, and then the rest is just expanding on its own. We just have to step out of the way.
And there seems to be like another thing I noticed too, because I was in Sedona last year, and I've covered some conferences in other cities, and then this year was involved in a couple of things and some other things since we've been back on the mainland. And this is just like an example or microcosm of an energy transformation, which is I want to say, like, it's an old pattern, codependent type of pattern, not particularly like in a relationship. I just mean how we operate, what we think we're supposed to do. And, you know, if I do something, you do something for me, that type of, you know, codependent frequency. I'm speaking more of an energy, but what I'm seeing is one of the things that I would stand on is that it's becoming very clear to me that when people show up and they truly have no agenda, which goes further than their known intention because of the things we're unconscious of. All right. But two things happen. One, when people collaborate and co-create in this transforming, ever transforming energetic field of a higher collective service to the collective, magic happens. And I see a difference, like from Sedona, this past visit, to the one the year before, and some other places I've been, and just the overall energy in the community. But one of the things that happens is there's some really magical, spontaneous things happens. The other thing that happens, there seems to be some high level opportunities that aren't always comfortable because people are shining so much light, the shadows got nowhere to go. So it's interesting. I don't know if you've had any comments to add to that, but that's just something I thought maybe with your experience and background you might kind of relate to.
With the shadow here, I think the name of the game is to reintegrate everything back together. What you just said is, oh, there's so much light that the shadow is in discomfort, basically, right? And so that starts playing on the background too. But when you bring that in the foreground and you look at it and you realize it and you understand and you merge it back with the light and you create that cooperation, balance. Shadow's got plenty of skills, that you could use, but you will use it from the perspective of the awakened conscious human being. So it's no longer scary. And it's no longer gonna like show up from the left field and do whatever. So you basically, it's like know thyself, right? Know thyself to the core, everything that's happening, reintegrating that back together. I believe that that's the new level of embodiment. At least this is what I'm experiencing at this time, where in that way, there is no left field, something showing up and shadow has nowhere to go, like you said, right? In that field, everything is back into balance, but there is a process to it. And I went through that process. And of course, everyone has got their own process, but I went through the process of kind of dismantling my structure completely, right? There's a physical goes into this box. There's a emotional goes into this box. There is a energetic space goes into this box. There's a mind, there is the higher self, and it's all in separate boxes. There's a shadow here, there's like light right there. But when it's out of balance and when it's all in separate boxes, that's what creates fragmentation. So what I did with my own self, with my own petri dish, is I worked on every aspect separately and cleared whatever, as much as I could, and as much blockage, as much as whatever as I could. And the work never stops, but I've done a lot here in this space.
Yes.
So now I'm experiencing that everything is coming back together when you actually no longer have to ask the question that my clients ask me all the time, like, how do I stay in that state that I experience in meditation? That's the most common question. How do I be in touch with my higher self? Like as if it's like somewhere else, right? But when you defragment and you pull all these pieces back together, you realize that your body, your physical experience, your human experience is 3D is as much and as important, as much as a part of everything that you are, as the higher self interaction. You come back together and here you are ready to re-embody or embody that and bring that forth and live in that state from the physical into higher self and all the way in between. And it just becomes a very balanced, unified state of being, and where no longer you have to question of how to access higher self because it's there all the time. You no longer have to be scared of the shadow to show up because you know it very well and you worked on it, you helped it, and you reintegrated back in it. So there's no more fragmentation. Was that a long answer?
No, that was very good. And we have a follow-up question, but I have one comment to make. Such as the importance of don't run to the light, run to the dark. Because that's where you'll find out things you don't know about yourself. You are the light. But
because
I love the way
the amount of fragmentation that happens when we hide the dark is incredible, and that hurts people because they will be attracting that through their projects, through their loved ones, through their marriages, through their friends, and it's going to be showing all the time, and they're going to think that they live in a shitstorm, pardon my French. But the truth is if the parents did not allow the child to express their emotions, and the parents were like, you can only be a good girl, never yell, never cry, never scream, never, just be a good girl. So that whole part of the emotional spectrum gets pushed out of the person's experience into the subconscious. And then we start bringing that back in through external people, external experiences, and it's shown to us all the
So
time
here,
until we reintegrate.
yeah, and here's a perfect follow-up question from Bear, Free Bear,
Okay.
Bear times three. Uh, because this would be something that people would come up with. You know, what do you do when you okay? What do you do when you ignore the shadows, but
Yeah.
they keep coming?
Right.
That's
Because
pretty much answers it in the
they
question.
they gonna keep coming because it's a part of you. Everything is a reflection of what's happening
Yeah,
internally. The frequency,
yeah,
there's no such thing as like, oh my god, it just came out of nowhere. It's a match to something that we're not aware of. So self-awareness is super important, and also
yeah.
defragmentation of internal structure and consciousness. That's what's important as well. So well, I do as much as I can to help people do that within my sessions, but it's an iceberg, like we will see the top, and then they have
Well, and
to work on the bottom themselves. They have to work on that whole mass themselves.
yeah, and there's another follow-up comment here from Amanda, talking to Bear. I think shadow keeps coming until we fully clear it. Universe does test us, I feel. But I think this is for me anyway, and I'm trying to represent the whatever, the majority, or whatever, the 99.99. The whole use of the word clearing. I think I
Yeah,
understand it because
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
married to a practitioner. But what I've really come to understand, through working with her and even with other people and participating in the show, is that this is really a matter, and it sounds like a cliche and it sounds fluffy, but it is really loving everything. And those
Yeah.
shadows are our biggest opportunity, because that's our highest points of separation, something we feel like
Right.
we are not. Otherwise, why would we ignore it? But it's kind of changed, I think, in the energetic climate, to
Yeah.
where people are starting to accept that, and that's starting to have an impression on what we experience collectively, what we see in the community, and that type of thing. You don't see as much backbiting, you don't see as much finger pointing. It's still there, but I think we're making progress.
I think so too. And clearing, when it comes to shadow, is not the word. I agree with you completely, and not the concept or not the approach, because it's reintegration rather than clearing. Because if we keep pushing that away, if we keep giving the resistance to that aspect, then we're going to start resisting it in external circumstances that come in. We're going to be pushing away the people that are representing that back to us, and that very often it just shows up. It just always actually shows up through intimate relationships or romantic relationships. Oh, how come that person was so nice first 3 months, and now it's like, whoa, my worst nightmare. So because like you're not even aware that that's a match to that shadow. So actually sitting down, recognizing, okay, I got the shadow. How do I work with the shadow? How do I reintegrate the aspects and smooth that within, and appreciate that, and take that back in, and kind of like let that part of yourself back in, and then work from the consciousness of the higher mind, like I said, or the consciousness of where everything is in acceptance. But when you develop that higher mind, you're no longer gonna let that shadow run the show anymore, and it's not going to surprise you, like I said too. So it's like putting them, like I said earlier, it's like putting everything into pieces, a little, and cleaning up, and then putting them back together, so that we can reintegrate from the different level of consciousness. There, I just said it. So we can reintegrate from a different level of consciousness. Yeah. There.
And that's a great word. Somebody made a comment too, that's a great word, reintegrate. I mean, because it's like, okay, so one of the things about being in a relationship, we're actually, living side by side in these energies, when two people are doing what the work that we're all here doing, is that whole identification of the shadow in yourself it becomes quicker and quicker and quicker,
Yeah.
because really every moment ultimately is about you.
Yeah.
And anytime you start to, start to externalize anything, which happens so rapidly and deeply and not, I don't want to say complicatedly, but it's just so expansive. There's so much volume to the different energetic exchanges between two people when they get closer and closer and closer. But and I think that's kind of where we're headed, all of us, because I mean, telepathy is telepathy. It's 100%. It's not like, oh, you have a little bit of telepathy. It's no,
Yeah.
you have a little bit of intuition. We all are reintegrating a full telepathic existence. And
Excellent.
and
Yeah.
so these are some of the things that come up on the human side, because like you said, we have that human condition.
And the more we move past that human not entirely, but the more we're able to live the human condition from the higher consciousness, the more we can do that, the more our abilities are available to us. Because all of that stuff constitutes baggage, or the weight or the heaviness of you, or the lower frequencies that people are dragging around. This is why you are not able to tap into your supernatural abilities. And that's what I think was propagated by design, when the human beings were put into that control state, like everything is external, so that you could not tap into your abilities. Now that once we clear, reintegrate, and clean up, and start working or operating from the higher level of consciousness, all of a sudden these abilities become just natural. Telepathic living. So what? Remote viewing. I'm waiting for my limitation moment. I'm already doing the remote viewing and the telepathic and all kinds of other stuff that I'm not even aware that it's like odd for other people, but I'm waiting for like a lift off during one of my meditations. I think that's just going to happen about any minute now.
I've experienced closeness that where it was fairly close, and it scared me. Happened one time in Hawaii. I wanted to ask you too. For I don't know, I'm going to go back 2-3 years. I can't. I've only been really watching this stuff since the middle of 2014. But when people would predict, offer their intel, offer their forecasts for the future, and obviously it changes every day, whatever. Just people doing the best for whatever they can put out as they get it. And but there were quite a few times that when people would talk about what's I think here already, they would talk about how many souls would physically transition. And we know we had a dear sister that transitioned out of Sedona, Sherilyn, everybody knows. We know there's no death. But what I also noticed was there was and it's been building over the last few weeks, but I really noticed it over the last 10 days, a lot of fundraisers for funeral services, a lot of people talking about relatives and friends that had passed. And I know this may be a little bit trivial, but I'm really actually trying to address it from the experience and the energetic meaning. Do you think that we'll see more people physically transition? And if so, what kind of effect do you think that will have on our outlook in terms of getting closer to our reality?
Okay, so I have a couple of ideas. First of all, I do not like to make predictions, especially of this sort, because what we focus on gets bigger. I don't want to give anyone a ground to say, oh my God, like half the population gonna die. No. That's first. So I'm not the person to make predictions in this realm, but there is another thing that the old energy has to clear. It's like something that's holding the balloon from lifting. So the old energy has to clear. More of that has to go before we can lift off, like you said. A lot of the a lot of the light ones who transition at this time, perhaps they want a new beginning. They want to come back in stronger, younger bodies. They want to come back with a set of abilities where they don't have to labor for 30 years, like in meditation on the mountain to just get somewhere, you know, like come back without all of that heaviness of the human condition. So that's a potential too. And then there's also, where do they go, you know? We say the birds are multidimensional. The birds can shift from one dimension to the next right in front of our eyes, you know, boom, and gone, right, and back. And are these people really dying, or did they shift into a different dimension? So there's that question that kind of came to mind when you're talking about that. So I think that there are all these aspects that are taking place too. And then
that's a great answer.
And then the new earth versus the old earth. So when we lose someone out of our circles and they become invisible to us, did we shift in a different, with a different timeline and they didn't? Or did they shift with a different timeline?
Or all of the above.
Yeah.
Or all of the above. But yeah, I like what you said about the, you know, in other words, the density, the heavy density has to leave.
Right.
It has to leave to create that vacuum for expansion. Because as the days go by, and even though this has been a very personal and human set of incarnations or whatever for all of us, it's a very real thing. But we are starting to see ourselves more and more and more as energy. First, everything else we can accept, but then to see ourselves as strictly energy and operating that way, I think that's a really good point. It takes out the, I don't know, it takes out that whole lack and loss, you know, the prolonged sadness and these things that are really not part of us. And we are able to look at things still that are, on one hand, they're not permanent, but on the other hand, you know what I mean? Paradoxically and cosmically, it is permanent.
But look at the old school mentality that's being passed from these people, and these people are carrying and propagating and sharing, you know, like all of our human beliefs, you know, can't gain anything, no pain, no gain. That's an awful belief, right? You have to suffer to achieve or get somewhere or be happy, right? Love means pain. Love means pain.
No mas.
Yeah, right.
No mas.
Or like, what else?
No mas.
We're carrying all these programs, and the older the generations, the thicker that programming and that mind, and that's creating frequency that is being put into the same shared energy field. We're in telepathic, we're in shared consciousness. So yeah, that's gotta go. But then again, you know, did they just like move into parallel timeline, into parallel earth? We don't know that for sure. For us, they're no longer within our visual, within our vicinity.
Yeah, it's just, you know, I just wondered as a community, why is this in our field? But I think that's a great explanation, what you said. Two explanations. So do you have, like, and I don't know why I'm even asking this, because I never asked something like this, something Egyptian, like that connected to, you know, the Egyptian part, or was that part of your intel, or is it part of your intel? I'll say Egyptian, you know, like sacred wisdom that came out of that civilization. Do you resonate with that at all?
Well, my first awakening experience, my first experience of experiencing source was in Egypt, in the desert, outside of Sinai, like at Sinai Desert. And that was the first time I experienced source. I've been to Egypt a couple of times as a child, and recently a lot of, aside from that desert experience, and then recently a lot of the guidance that comes through it seems like, as we're, you know, as above so below, right, as we're piecing together, we're putting together this little, like, our little compartments come back together to create unity within self, right? it's the same within realms, because I'm seeing like the aliens say, hey, here's the creator gods for the aliens, here are different alien species, here are the blue aliens, here's Thoth, and he's incarnated into a number of ascended masters or teachers for earth, and here's the knowledge that he brought through Egypt, or through Egyptian, his Egyptian incarnation, his Egyptian experience. And that knowledge carries, if you studied or read the emerald tablets, that's all there. The void, the creation of the universe, the genetic manipulation, the creation of the human race, everything is in there, right? So it's kind of, I think, because Egypt carries so much connection and information, we're all tapped into it. The teachers are all tapped into it, I feel.
Yeah.
And I also have a personal buddy. I also have a personal buddy who, one of them is Anubis, but my friend. So one of that kind of race is Anubis, or the incarnation of that race into that Egyptian era. But I actually have a personal buddy from the dimension from where Anubis came from, where I hang out with him and in the realms, and he's a part of my team, and so that, I guess, links. I don't
keep people have given me, and thank you all of you for, crystals and other things, gifts and stuff. This is the only thing I've ever actually kept. Tom Bear gave it to me. Did I tell you what happened over at Sherilyn's? I don't know if we had lunch after this happened.
Oh, yeah. I remember that. Do you want to tell that again? That's an awesome story.
No, well, I mean, it was, it was just the, there's so many different aspects involved with that. I had experiences with Anubis the year before when I went to Sedona, on the day I got there and the day I left. Mm-hmm. And I don't typically have specific, essences come to my field. It's more of a general thing or a group collective. But what I thought was so fascinating, of course, the whole time we were there, it was very meaningful to be with Sherilyn, and we would sit around the table every night and talk. I ended up having to walk behind her house and merge with Anubis, and there was a physical animal that was basically clocking us, that was walking back and forth, and it was bigger than a dog, and all this stuff happened.
Can I ask you, was it definitely Anubis, or was it the representative of the canine race that actually?
No, it was, I would not normally, unless I absolutely knew, but absolutely it was, because I was sitting there talking to Morgan and Sherilyn, and then he came in. And,
oh my God.
And I was like,
and then Sherilyn transitioned, by the way.
Yes.
And then Sherilyn transitioned.
And
what does Anubis
do? She was
Anubis walks.
He's the
walks and guards the realm of the dead. So you have that experience, and then she transitions. How interesting.
Yeah, it was very interesting. Yeah, that's and then obviously a lot of people talk about too that Egyptian connection to Sedona. I mean, I did a show not too long ago. Somebody was talking about, or I saw it on YouTube or something, but they actually have Egyptian hieroglyphics in some of the caves and such, in the Sedona area.
And which is
fascinating, of course.
And the part of Team Light and the creator of Sedona Cosmic Awakening, Thunderbeat Divara, she does tours around Sedona, Egypt and Sedona. And she's got all of the images and knowledge that is in correlation with that. And we got our Cosmic Awakening coming up, where she would talk about it. I'm sure that's why don't you because I don't want to miss anything. We still got a few minutes. We still got one more show today, but what I wanted to say is, do you have anything coming up, or is there anything coming up, and anything you wanted to talk about? Well, I'm doing the two big events that I know about that I do every year. And so we got Sedona Yoga Festival coming up. That's March 12th through 16th. And I'm teaching the development of supernatural abilities, which the yogis call siddhis. And that's my workshop, is how to tap into that or developing your supernatural abilities through consciousness, the state of mind. We kind of touched upon that today a little bit. That's a wonderful event. It's better and better every year. And it literally, there is such an incredible sense of oneness and community, and all of the activities are phenomenal, and they have live music, and they have wonderful workshops, and they have great yoga teachers, and it's international, and I just love that event. So I'm looking forward to that. And then the next one after that is big. We got Sedona Cosmic Awakening, and that's April 24, 26. And we have a wonderful lineup of speakers, and we got Randy Kramer, Captain Randy Kramer, as the headliner, because he's had the real experiences, and he also is one of the few people out there who talk about disclosure that approach the entire interaction with extraterrestrial and disclosure itself from the perspective of oneness and unity, and there's no threat, and there is no something to be scared about, that there are no races that are a threat to humanity, that we are the biggest threat to ourselves, which is true, until we all process and stuff. So I'm really excited to and look forward to that event as well. And I'm doing telepathy and remote viewing as the means for contact, because extraterrestrial beings that you see show up in your living room, they're probably man-made, and they're probably military abductions that traumatize people. There's such an intense and strong grid of counter measures that humans have implemented already to keep the extraterrestrials out. The most certain way to connect with extraterrestrials is through telepathic and remote viewing. They're not going to materialize into your living room unless it's a human-made fake thing. So
very interesting information. So that's going to be part of that conference, part of those two conferences. All right, well, that's cool. Well, we'll have to, it's still a ways off, so we'll have to get together again in between now and then.
I would love that.
Move closer, I'm sure we will.
Yeah.
And maybe we'll even see you in Sedona again if we're passing by. If we're stopping by or passing by, I don't know. But for right now, we're going to stay out here with the bears and the deer.
I'd love that. I'd love that. I'm staying with the bears and the deer, and I'm anchoring that energy every day here. And I got the whole zoo of wildlife right outside my window here. So
I merged with the bear about 3 nights ago. On the I didn't see him physically. I saw one the second night I was here, but yeah, it was a pretty. I mean, I won't say powerful, but it was a very physical merging. Like his face got right in my face, and then I felt him going just one side of my body. My right side of the body. It was kind of strange, but yeah,
and that helps
cool.
when we do that with the animal kingdom. That helps to understand. It's a telepathic interaction with the animal kingdom and the animal spirits, the plant spirits, and the land spirits. And when we are open enough to have that interaction, I hope that more people develop these abilities, because that takes us out of wanting to, or even being able to harm the land in any way, or harm these beings in any way. And we need this here in this.
Well, oneness is oneness, and that's the thing. All this stuff is right in front of our faces, and we sometimes we get caught up in the star family and all that. Not that that's not important, but we can pull and ground and anchor and embody more oneness right here with everything that's working right in front of us.
Yep.
So that's a really good point you made.
Landed back on Earth from the perspective of the higher consciousness, while embodying the higher realms and being fully aware of what's happening everywhere through your stream. That's the name of the game.
Right on. You take care, Isabella. Thank you so much.
Love you. Thank you so much for having me. Take care. Bye-bye, guys. Bye.
See y'all later. Bye-bye.